Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name's Katie Wismer. I'm an author and I also do freelance editing services. I'm still getting over being sick. I hope you can't really hear it in my voice. But today we're going to be doing the video on how my most recent book release went. That book being Ruthless Ends, Marionettes book 4, the final book in my Marionettes series. And this is my 10th book overall. Came out on October 22nd of 2023. This is the series. Looks quite nice together if I say so myself. So yeah, it's been a little over a week since the book came out, and I like to do these sit-down videos where we're just kind of chat about how the release went. You guys sent me in some questions, we'll answer those specific ones. Otherwise, we're just going to chat about it, things I did differently, how things went, how I'm feeling right now, basically. Just some reflections. If you end up liking this kind of style of video, I've done this for, I actually don't remember how many, but a lot of my book releases in the past. I'll track them down for you and I'll put the videos down below. And if you haven't started the series yet, if you like new adult dark fantasy, the series is complete, so now would be a great time to start. It's got vampires, witches, werewolves, an academy setting, slow burn romance, and it does get pretty spicy as you get further into the series. Book 1 is the Marionettes. All right, all in all, it's been a really great book release. Honestly, I couldn't have asked for much better. It's been a little chaotic on my end just because I took a trip right before I got home at like midnight on the 21st, and then the book release was the 22nd, and then I got super sick after that. So you know, when you've been just like surviving on cough medicine for a week straight, nothing feels real. It feels like you've been like drunk for a week straight. So like my brain is only now starting to function again. So I guess we'll start by talking about like the marketing and stuff that I did for this release and all the decisions that I made. We'll talk about some challenges. We'll talk about how much I spent, return on investment and whatnot. Then I think we'll get into your questions, because any of my other like reflections and stuff I think will come up naturally from those questions. So this being the 4th book in my series and the final book also, I've been saying I didn't want to do a big marketing push until the full series was out. Then I felt like it would make more sense to put more money into the marketing because you would have greater potential for return on investment. So while you'll see in a second, I didn't pump a ton of money into this release, I do have plans moving forward to start putting a lot more money into marketing and advertising. So I guess that'll be another section of this video, like what are my plans moving forward. So for this one, because it's the 4th book in a series, I didn't send out any arcs. However, a ton of people got this book early, which is, I mean, it's kind of like an arc. I'll probably also be talking about my Kickstarter a lot in this video because these two things kind of go hand in hand. I ran a Kickstarter called the Marionettes Series Deluxe Content Kickstarter, I think, around the same time as this release to celebrate the series ending. So a lot of my marketing for the Kickstarter and the release, they kind of go hand in hand. So people were able to get an early copy of this book as part of the Kickstarter. That was one of the add-ons that you could add. Or if you pre-ordered the audiobook, I offered the early ebook for free in addition to that, just as like an extra thank you for pre-ordering the audiobook. Also, if you're someone who listens to my audiobooks, that's a little bit of an update. The audiobook for this book is still coming. It's just been a little bit delayed and it's out of my hands right now. I'm just waiting around as patiently as you guys are. There was an emergency with the audio editor, so it's been in production. My narrator's been recording it and everything. There's just been a little bit of a bump there, so I'm hoping it'll come out sometime this month in November, but I will let you know when I have updates. Right now I'm just kind of like waiting around. I don't know any more than you do. We'll get more into that honestly in the challenges section. So anyway, a lot of people got this book early through those two means, and then I also, although I didn't like give away copies of this book, I gave away a ton of copies of the first book, the Marionettes. I think it was like at the end of September or the beginning of October, whenever Stuff Your Kindle Day was. I ran a free promo for book 1 with the hopes of funneling in a ton of new people into the series as it was wrapping up. Actually wasn't, if you don't know what Stuff Your Kindle Day is, it's a day run by indie authors. I can link the original website down below. Now it's kind of like exploded and everyone's making their own version, but it was started by one indie author, and then a ton of indie authors kind of pooled together to participate in this event where they basically, everyone was just like sharing with their mailing lists. Then it went viral on TikTok, and now it's been this big game of telephone where everyone's like explaining what it is and they're not explaining it correctly. It's not an Amazon endorsed event or anything like that. It was created by a single indie author. Anyway, she runs it once a quarter, 4 times a year, and my initial plan had been to put the Marionettes in Stuff Your Kindle Day, which are all romance books, so it would have been under like the fantasy romance category. And I just got in too late, so I wasn't able to put my stuff into the form in time. But I knew a lot of people were going to be searching for free books on those days, so I set it free anyway and just kind of advertised it as being a part of the day, even though I technically wasn't. And just by doing that, just by riding some coattails basically, I still managed to get like 8,000 free downloads. So don't knock it till you try it. This is the first time I've ever said the Marionettes for free. I was kind of waiting to do that free promo until there was the whole series. And if you're not familiar with lost lead marketing, basically the idea is you give the first book in your series away for free with the hopes of hooking your reader, and then they'll go through and they'll read the rest of your series, and that's where you'll see the return on that investment. The longer your series, the more potential you have for a return. I also sent out influencer PR boxes this go around, which I've like kind of done before, but not really. I've done like Instagram book tours where I sent some bookstagrammers like a paperback of the first book. So for this one, I think I did show it in a vlog in here, like what was in it, and I have a whole video on it over on Patreon. Basically, I reached out to a ton of influencers over on TikTok asking if they wanted a box. Got quite a few who said yes, and I sent them just a quick box that I threw together. It had the paperbacks of Ruthless Ends. It had a little business card with a QR code so they could download book 1 for free if they hadn't started the series yet. And then it had a ton of swag like character art prints, bookmarks, tarot cards, stickers, that kind of stuff, just with the hopes that some of them would post about it to help spread the word a little bit more for release. I ended up having to ship them out so much later than I would have wanted to because I ordered the paperbacks and Amazon just took forever to get them to me. So I actually didn't ship them out till after release, and my hope would have been to ship them out before, but it is what it is. I actually think it might be a blessing in disguise because release week I'm able to gain a lot of momentum just for myself from the readers that I already have, my newsletter, my social media, and whatever. And now that the influencers are starting to get the boxes like a week or two after release, maybe this will help keep that momentum going a little bit further than I would be able to do myself. I'm not banking on all of them posting. I even told them in the email like there's no obligation, but if you do post I would appreciate it. So I've seen 2 people unbox them on their accounts so far. At least they've like tagged me in them, so it was easy for me to find. But I think some people still haven't even gotten them. I think they're still in the mail system. So I'm hoping to see a few more videos pop up over the next couple of days. I only sent out, I want to say like 12 because the shipment of paperbacks were so damaged that I didn't have enough copies. So more in the challenges section. And then as far as my own marketing, I've just been doing my usual posting on Instagram Reels and TikToks, and I also started posting on YouTube Shorts. I have a whole video again over on my Patreon in the self-publishing 101 tier where I do like behind the scenes publishing stuff aimed for other authors. Other stuff for this release, I haven't been reading reviews for the book, which is different for me. I do tend to read reviews the first like week or two a book comes out, and for this one I've just really decided that's not a good idea for me. I've seen the ones on Amazon. I am staying far away from Goodreads, and I'm mainly just keeping an eye on how many reviews have shown up on Amazon. We have 60 so far, and now Amazon tells you what the average on Goodreads and how many ratings there are on Goodreads. I don't know if it's accurate, but that's according to Amazon. There's over 100 reviews on Goodreads now. But yeah, I think I've been pretty open about the journey of this book, and this has been the hardest book I've ever written in my life, and this has been just the most challenging writing and publishing experience. So coming out of that, like, I feel like I just hit the summit. I'm at the top of the mountain. I finally have a breath of fresh air, and after this like really long trek, I don't want to look back, and I don't want to hear negative things about it right now. I'm not in a good place to do that right now, so we're staying clear of that. I was also honestly just like the most insecure about this book release. Sometimes I go into a book release and I'm feeling real confident. I feel like endings are one of my weaker spots as a writer for individual books, and for this is my first time ending a series, so writing this book I was really nervous about this whole book being an ending, and then also the ending of this individual book. So just like a moment of appreciation for my readers who've reviewed on Amazon, because you're the only thoughts on the book I've really seen, unless people have like tagged me in their individual social media posts. But I've seen so many reviews of people like being really satisfied with this book and being really satisfied with the ending, and that was something I was so insecure about going into this release. So it's been such a huge relief to see people like the book and be satisfied with the book. I can't even tell you how relieved I am. This series means a lot to me. It's been a real game changer for my career, which we'll get into more of the number stuff in a second, but also just like a personal importance, and like this was super fulfilling to me creatively, and just this series is always going to hold a special place in my heart, and I wanted to do it justice. And you know, the readers who followed me along with this whole journey and who've read all of the books, like I just really didn't want to let them down. I wanted them to leave this series on a high note. I wanted them, you know, to be able to look back on this series fondly and not look back on this series as one of those like, oh, the last book like ruined it for me because it was so bad. Because that's happened to me with a lot of my favorite series growing up. Like, I loved them, and then the last book was such a disappointment, and that sticks with you. You remember that you didn't like the last book. I think that was like in the back of my mind the whole time writing this book too. I was thinking of all of the series. I'm so hard to please with endings. Maybe that's why I'm just kind of hard on myself with my own endings, because I know I'm hard to please with the endings. I think this is also the best book release that I've seen numbers wise with the series. I think the Kickstarter might play into that because the Kickstarter sold a lot of books. This one sold well over 1,000 copies in its first week, so definitely happy with that, especially because I would say the majority of this series readers, maybe like 75%, are Kindle Unlimited readers. So having that many like outright sales is a big deal for me because I know the bulk of the sales are actually going to come in later as those Kindle page reads start to show up. So having, even though I know like that's the bulk of my audience, having them also show up and buy physical forms of the books, or the like actually outwardly buying the ebook, that is like a really good indicator of a solid book release for me, because I know like that's not gonna last. These books are always selling well, but they're always selling well in Kindle Unlimited. The rest of the sales are usually pretty average, but my Kindle page reads are like really high. Does that make sense? So seeing a release where the Kindle page reads are still good, but all of the other numbers are also good, that makes me feel really happy. Okay, so really briefly, some challenges that popped up with this book release. Things happen. In general, all of the shipments I've been getting from Amazon for the books, for this release, but then also for all of my Kickstarter orders, every other box of books that shows up ends up being, the majority of the books are damaged and I can't use them. So that's been fun. It's been really challenging because it takes so long for the books to get here anyway, and then for them all to show up damaged, I have to put in another order, and then I have to wait weeks for them to get to me again. So it's been a really big delay, and I'm like wanting to ship out. I got so many orders through this Kickstarter and I can't fulfill them because all of the books keep coming in damaged. Amazon ends up refunding the damaged copies, so it's fine. It's just really slowing me down, and I know my readers are excited to get all the stuff that they ordered. So that's been really frustrating for me in general. It also ended up impacting my like PR box plan and things like that. There's been a delay with the audiobook. I also ended up having to push the release date of the book itself back. It was originally supposed to come out September 22nd. I had to push it back to October 22nd and give myself an extra month because this book was just so challenging. I needed the extra time, and I'm so glad I took the extra time. It was well worth it. I've never ever had to push a release date back before, so that was a decision I warred with over myself for a long time. It was definitely the right decision. I'm 100% confident that that was the right decision, but it was one of those things where the majority of people were really understanding and polite about it, and some people weren't. Some people were really mad that I pushed the release date back even though it was only a month. And then if you've stayed caught up on the vlogs, you know that the final challenge for this book was there was supposed to be a piece of character art made for this release, and it was going to be in the back of the hardcover. It was going to be a new print sent out with all the signed books and stuff, and my artist ghosted me. So she just never got back to me. We were in like the final steps of the process, and then she just stopped replying to my emails, and I still haven't heard from her. So people, that was a question I got a lot. People wanted an update on if I ever heard back from her. I haven't. I think I emailed her 3 or 4 times over the course of like a couple of weeks, and I DM'd her on Instagram and nothing. So at this point, I just hope she's okay. I don't expect to ever hear from her again. I don't expect to ever see the finished art, and it is what it is. For those of you who are interested in some numbers, how much this book cost. So I actually bought the cover way back before book 1 even came out. I got all of the covers together. I think it was like $380. At the time her rate had been $400, but I got a discount because I got all 4. But since then she's raised her prices. So I think at the time I spent $380, and then I had to add on for the audiobook cover, which used to be $50 through her. Now it's been raised to $75, so I had to pay $75 this go around. My proofreader ended up being about $655. I don't know how much my narrator is going to cost for this book so far, because I won't know until the audiobook is finished, because that's when she'll send me the invoice. I'm estimating about $900. She and I do royalty share plus, so I pay her a set rate per finished hour, and she also splits my royalties, and her per finished hour rate is $75 an hour. If you don't know anything about audiobooks, I have a whole video on it. I'll link it down below. if I didn't share my royalties with her, it would be $275 an hour. My PR boxes, I want to say I ended up spending about $120 on them, including the shipping. They would have been over $200, but because so many of the copies ended up being damaged, I got a refund from Amazon, so the books were kind of free that I sent out. I think that was in one of the vlogs I showed them to you. It was like, you see how this cover is like plain black? It looked like it had like a completely different design and texture on it because it was so scuffed up and scratched on both the front and the back for the books. So they didn't look the way they were supposed to, but because they were PR boxes, they were free books, people didn't pay for them, and I didn't have any other choice. It was already too late. The release date had already passed and I wasn't gonna get any new books anytime soon. I just sent the most palatable ones out anyway. So the PR boxes ended up being a little less expensive because I got the refund for the books. So total, not including my estimate for the narrator, was about $1,250 for this book, which is pretty average for me. Now we're gonna jump into some viewer questions. If you have any other questions that I don't get to, if you wanna leave them in a comment down below, I will answer them either in the comment or in like a future video. This one I thought was a really interesting question. What was your process of this book compared to your first book in this series? I really thought this was an interesting question because I hadn't really thought about it until you asked. But as soon as I started thinking about it, I was like, oh, how strange. I actually think the process of this book was so similar to the process of book 1. And then books 2 and 3 had a similar process that was very different, which is strange because with book 1, I was trying to plan the whole series at the same time, to like plant little things in book 1 that would lead into future books. I was trying to come up with the world building and all of the characters, and I was trying to think with like a very broad perspective, knowing all of these other books were going to fill in later. So I was writing book 1, but I was also thinking about the other books as I was writing. And then with book 4, I was writing book 4 and book 4's plot, but I was thinking back to all 3 previous books and trying to tie up every single loose end also at the same time. So both book 1 and book 4, I was writing with this like really like, I was never only paying attention to one thing. Whereas book 2 and book 3 were more of this like constant juggling, constant like balancing act. Obviously I was thinking about the whole series while I was writing both of them too, but I don't know how to explain it. I'm like picturing like a tightrope and like 4 people, one for each book, and like the people on the end have like something solid to hold on to, and then they're like holding the hands of the people in the middle. So the 2 people in the middle feel the most unstable because they don't have anything solid to hold on to. They're like dependent on the people on the ends. Does that make sense? That is how it felt writing these books. I will say with honestly book 1 and book 4, it was more like I made a plan, got in there, the plan wasn't gonna work, okay, we're just gonna go off the vibe and we're just gonna figure it out. Book 2 and book 3 stuck to the plan a lot better. Books 1 and book 4, I had to just say screw it and do whatever worked, which is funny. I feel like it would make more sense if it was the other way around. I got a lot of questions asking basically about writing a series, and now that I've finished a series, like what has it taught me about writing a series? Do I have advice for someone who wants to write a series, all that kind of stuff? And I thought about this for a good long while, and once I kind of realized how I was going to answer this question, it made me laugh, because this is the kind of question that I would ask someone to in the past before I'd written a series. This is 100% something I would want to know as well. Because basically you're asking because you want me to give you this piece of wisdom, this like special magical answer that's gonna make writing the series easier, right? You want something that's gonna help you avoid it being too hard. You want something that's going to just like make it make more sense, make the process easier. And what writing a series has taught me is the only way out is through. There is no great helpful thing that is going to make writing a series easier. It's just hard. Writing a series is just hard. Writing a book itself never gets easier, and I can say that after writing 10 books. And every single time I'll like approach a book trying to, you know, take the knowledge that I've learned from the previous books, and I do think it makes the quality of my books better. I do think my books improve with each one, but the process itself never gets easier. It never gets more streamlined or more organized. It's always messy. It's always tough. I will say what you learn from writing a book and from writing a series, what you gain is this feeling and this faith and this knowledge that you've been through this before, and no matter how messy and hard it feels right now, you know you're gonna get to the other side. You know you're gonna finish it. You know you can do it because you've done it before. So the one thing I think you gain just from going through the complete process with a book or the complete process of a series and finishing is you gain this confidence and this faith in yourself that no matter how hard something feels in the moment, you know you'll figure it out. It'll come together one way or another. I think that was kind of my downfall a little bit with writing this book, and why this one was so much harder is I was trying so hard to make it not hard. I was trying to find a way to make writing this book easier instead of just embracing writing this book is going to be hard. And there's no easy fix, there's no shortcut, there's no secret to make writing it easier. It's just going to be fucking hard. Stop trying to make it easy. Just embrace that it's going to be hard. Another thing that I've learned from writing a series is no amount of preparation ahead of time is going to be enough. No amount of preparation will prepare you enough. I did so much outlining and world building and all of these like worksheets and stuff before writing the first book in the series, trying to plan everything, trying to think of everything that could pop up, and that didn't even scratch the surface. I was able to plan for maybe 10% of things that came up with this series. The rest, you can't. In a way, I think it's kind of the fun part. You surprise yourself with the things that you come up with. Those are honestly my favorite parts in the process of writing any book, is when you get those like aha moments and something clicks and you're like, oh my god, that would work and that would pull this and this together, and then it just like makes complete sense, and it's like you planned it from the beginning but you had no fucking clue. So all in all, what's my advice to anyone who wants to write a series? It's gonna be hard. It's a hard thing to do. Writing a book is a hard thing to do. Writing a series is a hard thing to do, but it is incredibly rewarding. It's the most rewarding thing I've experienced, even more so than finishing individual books. I always feel accomplished after writing a book and publishing a book. Like, I always feel proud of it. I always feel proud of myself. But I will say finishing a series feels different for me, and this will go into another question that I got quite a bit, was like, how does it feel knowing the series is finished? How does it feel having a complete series now? And there's two sides of that, the business side and then just like feelings. And finishing this series, I feel really accomplished. I feel really proud of myself. Like, I finished a series. No matter what anyone says about the books, I finished it. I wrote this whole thing. I finished a series, and I know how hard that was. And I'm proud of myself because there were times I really didn't think I could do it. There were times writing this book when I started to question if I even wanted to write anymore. And that has never happened to me before. It got so hard where I was like, why am I even doing this? Do I even like writing anymore? Like, do I even want to do this anymore? I really started to doubt whether I could pull it off. I started to doubt whether it was even worth all of this work, because I was like, no matter what, I'm gonna publish this book and there's gonna be people who hate it, and I'm like, I can't please everybody. Like, what is the freaking point? Nothing I write is gonna be good enough. It really tested my belief in myself, and I don't know how bad I want this. I think it was a necessary test for me, and no matter how hard it got, I did it. I finished the book. I finished the series. Most writers never finish a book. They never publish a book, let alone an entire series. But I did, and no one can take that away from me. That's how I feel coming out of this series. So, kind of similar question, is writing and publishing a series worth it? I think it depends. I think it sounds like from that previous answer, the easy answer would be yes, but I think it depends. It depends on what worth it means to you and what you're hoping to get out of it. I will say the Marionettes series financially is the most successful of all of my books by far. They're the easiest to market and to make money off of now, because all I have to do is market book one and then I get that read through that whole series, whereas with a standalone there's less payoff. Even if I do manage to convince someone to read the book, there's only the one book. They might go on to read my other books, but the read through is not as guaranteed or organic as it is with a series like this. Writing a series is a serious commitment. This has taken up the last 3 years of my life. I have published some books in between, but honestly, when I look back at the past 3 years of my life, it is this series. I lived, breathed, slept. Like, this is all I thought about. I was constantly working on it. I was literally every moment for the past 3 years, I was always working on one of these books in one way or another. They were always in some part of the process. I was either working on the publishing side of one, or the outlining side of one, or the rough draft, or the editing, or marketing. Like, I was always doing something for one of these books for the past 3 years. It was a lot of time, a lot of energy and mental energy that this series took up for me. And like I said, it was really fucking hard, and I hit some really low points with this series wondering if it was worth it. So I do think it's important that it's something that you're passionate enough about that you're going to be able to push through those harder parts which the truth could be said for writing any book or publishing anything. But I feel like, I don't know, the vibe off this question was more like financially, is it worth it? And for me, it has been. I'm not gonna give you a blanket answer and be like, yes, every series is gonna be financially worth what you invest into it, because I don't know that. I'm sure there's a lot of authors who have had flop series and haven't made their money back. I do think you can stack the cards in your favor and you can do everything in your power to make things successful, but I do think there is just a degree of timing and luck sometimes that you can't account for. But I also think the shelf life of an indie series specifically has so much potential, so even if something isn't worth it, doesn't make all of its money back at first, it doesn't mean it might not 5 years later, you know? Have you made back the money you've invested into this series? Absolutely, like 100 times over. So I will say publishing this series was really expensive, especially because a lot of my costs were up front. Like I bought all of the covers and stuff together. So it really was one of those things where I had to have faith that I might have to be patient to start seeing the momentum build up with this series. I'm trying to think how much I've even invested into this whole, I could probably sit down and put together all of the numbers. Each of the books cost over $1,000 by themselves at least. So I would say a bare minimum $5,000 went into this series, but I would, with all of the like extra stuff I've done, probably more towards $10,000. And I would really have to sit down and look at all of the numbers, but I'm willing to bet this series by itself, without including any of my other books, has brought in like $100,000. So was it worth it? Yes. Did that happen right away? No. But I say that too, not to be like, oh my god, look at these numbers. I say that because I think if you look at my series, you might not expect that. My ranking, the number of reviews and stuff, like I think they look nice, like I'm happy with them, but it doesn't look like top best-selling, like crazy things. And I think sometimes people think you need to have the top best-selling, crazy, impressive numbers in order to make a living, in order to make good money off of your books. And sometimes people don't expect that like the books that are just selling pretty well can also make a career for yourself. Like you don't have to do amazing, you just have to do well enough. I feel like this video has been really long. We'll do a little more rapid fire with the next ones. Something you would change or keep the same if you write another series. Like I was talking about before, I think stop trying to make it easier for myself. Also, just kind of with the release schedule of this series, this is something that we talked about recently on my Patreon page. If you haven't been around for that long, the first 2 books in this series came out kind of rapid release style. I had one come out at the end of August and then one in the beginning of December, so it was only about 3 months between books 1 and 2. Then it was almost a year until book 3, and then almost another year till book 4. And honestly, the process for books 1 and 2 I just look back on as better than the process for books 3 and 4, because I started writing book 1, and then as I was editing book 1, I started writing book 2. And as I was editing book 2, that's when book 1 came out. And then book 2 came out. So if I could plan ahead more and hold back books for a little bit longer, I liked having that process of like kind of working on both at the same time. Because then when I figured things out in book 2, I could go back and add them to book 1 because it hadn't been published yet, you know? And then by the time I got to book 3 and book 4, I was so fucking burnt out. And book 2 had already come out and I had barely started working on book 3, so then I was like kind of rushing to meet my deadlines. And I just remember book 1 and book 2 working on them together being more of a streamlined process, and I wish I had been able to keep that up with books 3 and book 4. Books 3 and book 4 were longer and more complicated, and I moved in the middle, so things got a little bit complicated. And I was also working on some other books in the middle that maybe I could have waited till I was done with the series to do those. So in the future for another series, I would like to have a bit of a better process where I don't publish the book as soon as it's ready. I hold on to it for a little bit and I'm working on them more simultaneously, while also not like writing all 4 and holding them back and then start publishing, something in between. One of my future plans, so this is the final book in the Marionettes series, but if you read the books, it's pretty clear there's potential for more. There's potential for more with these characters, and there's potential for more with the spin-off. So I do plan to go back to this world at some point. I'm gonna take a break from it first. If you read the end of book 4, it gives you a sneak peek of what the spin-off would be. So I do have plans for that. Like I said, I'm gonna take a break first. And in that break, I am currently working on a contemporary series. I'm writing a book for NaNoWriMo. I said I wasn't going to, and then at midnight I got excited and started working on it. It's the book I've been calling Gracie's book. It's gonna be the first book in a contemporary interconnected standalone series. And this first book is like a brother's best friend romance. So that is my focus right now. And once I feel like I've had enough distance from the Marionettes and I've gotten enough of a break and I'm feeling a little less burnt out, I feel like that's when I will go back to that world. I also have a standalone, like dark gothic paranormal in the back of my mind, but it's half-baked. It needs to process a little bit more before I can get to that. I have gotten questions if I'm gonna write more paranormal stuff outside of the Marionettes world, and 100%, I don't have an idea that's like fully formed just yet. Let's see if there were any more on Instagram. This question made me laugh. Why did you dedicate the book to Paige? She's great and all, but specifically. Yeah, I actually don't typically dedicate books to specific people. This one's for you, Paige. In comparison, the dedication for Bloodless Ties, I don't know if you can see that. It's for my We Want More Spice readers. Yeah, Ruthless Ends got a specific person. If you don't know, Paige is my best friend from college, and to be honest, when I was trying to think of who I was going to dedicate the book to, I realized I was 10 books in and I had never dedicated a book to her, and I was like, that's past due. There we go. I don't know, Paige is my most supportive friend when it comes to my books and everything. She's if I'm struggling with something, if I'm frustrated about something, she's the first person I like ask for ideas or like bounce ideas off of. She's the first person I talk to about everything when it comes to these books. I'm like, I'm writing this and this isn't working, and so she's the person that I go to. She has heard more about these books than she probably cares to. And yeah, she is my platonic soulmate. I love her to death. It was about time she got a book dedicated to her. So I got a question about my bonus scenes. Would you be able to make the extra scenes for your website available in another way? I'm subscribed to your mailing list and can't get the new scenes you add. So just in case anyone else happens to be confused about this, the Marionettes series has 5 bonus scenes available. One of them is through signing up for my newsletter. It's linked in the back of all of the Marionettes books. You just go click the link, it'll take you to BookFunnel, you put in your email, it'll automatically download you the short story. All of the other bonus scenes are in the back of the hardcovers. The hardcovers have bonus content, and that bonus content is exclusive to each hardcover. So you flip to the back and then there's like a bonus scene. Some of them have other stuff as well. So the only other way to get those 4 bonus scenes is one is in the back of each hardcover. The only newsletter or website one is the one, and then there's other like newsletter ones for my other books. Did the artwork stress affect your overall pride for finishing the series? No, it was a bummer, but it is what it is. Would you do another Kickstarter in the future? Absolutely. This Kickstarter has been so much fun. I'm trying not to get like frustrated by all of the damaged books and how it's like slowing me down, but this was a good test run. I've definitely hit some hiccups, and I know I could set it up in a much clearer, smoother way next time. It's been a good learning moment. But I've seen, you know, so many other authors are using Kickstarter these days, and I see them come up with so many cool things. So I would love to do another one in the future. Maybe something a little less complicated. This one offered so many different things, and that's why it ended up being really complicated. But if I just came up with like one special edition or like bind up of my books or something and offered just like the one thing, it would be a lot less complicated. I always get questions about what genre I plan on writing in the future. Basically the genres that I have published in so far I want to stay in. So this like fantasy, romance, kind of like dark fantasy, paranormal, that kind of thing, and then my contemporary romances. And there's a little bit of variation in my contemporary. I have like a college new adult, I have a romantic suspense. This next one is going to be more like almost like small town vibes, but just like in general contemporary romance. And then I do have my poetry collections out. If you don't know, I have some poetry collections. I have been writing poetry again, but I don't really plan on publishing more. I think I might do something more like I did with Broken Perfect Lies. That book is like an adult bodyguard romance, Hannah Montana kind of vibe, and so the main character is a songwriter, so a lot of the lyrics and like journal entries and stuff that I included in that book were like poems I've been working on at the time. So I might try and come up with more creative things like that to incorporate my poetry rather than like actually publishing collections. I think those are all of the questions. If I missed any, I'm not purposely ignoring you, I just can't find it. If you want to comment any other ones down below, feel free. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I feel like this video is already super long. Anyway, any final thoughts for the final book? Yeah, I feel like a weight has been lifted off of me. I've been so freaking stressed about this book up until the day it came out. Usually by the time I get to a book release, I kind of like come to peace. It's done. Like, I stopped messing with it. I know it's over. This book, even after I got the proofread back, I like couldn't stop tweaking it. Like, I could not stop messing with it, to the point where that's why I was like, I need to get these early books out now, because once it's in the hands of readers, I will stop messing with it. My brain will finally be like, oh, okay, it's done. We have to stop. And I haven't felt that way about a book since my first book release. Like, the first book is the one that you're like tinkering with and you can't get yourself to stop. My 10th book, and I started feeling that way again. I'm like, I haven't felt like this way in years. Oddly enough, I was kind of expecting to feel, I don't know, kind of sad about wrapping up this book. This has been such a big part of my life. I love these characters. I love this world. And, you know, when you like finish a book that you love reading, you're like, God, I wish I could have more time. Like, I don't want it to be over, and you feel sad. It's interesting because writing the books and coming to the end, it feels nothing like reading a book and coming to the end. It doesn't feel sad. It doesn't feel like you're saying goodbye, because I don't know, if I want to continue the story, I just like make shit up. I'm just like, oh, that's what would happen next. Also, when you're reading a book, you know, if you read it quickly, you read it in like 2 days, that's all the time that you got to spend with those characters. I have spent the last 3 years with them nonstop, so I've gotten quite a bit of time with them. So for everyone asking if I like feel sad or something, the only thing that I even got like a hint of that is when I was starting this next book and I was writing it, and I found myself sometimes kind of slipping into Valerie's voice, and I was like, oh wait, that's definitely not how Gracie would sound. After writing 4 books from her point of view, that's the longest I've ever followed a single character, it's gonna be weird not writing from Valerie's perspective, 100%, which is why, like, never say never, I might go back and like write some more books. That would be like, these 4 books stand on their own and maybe a different continuation, but following the same characters. That's why I could see myself going back to them at some point. I think the hardest part about finishing the series is going to be saying goodbye to Valerie's perspective and Valerie's voice, because she is something I can slip into so easily now. Whereas now that I write, when I'm writing a different book, I kind of have to remind myself like which character I'm writing from. Valerie feels like second nature at this point. We're gonna wrap up the video. This has been really long. So if you haven't picked up the book yet, I'll have all the links down below in the description. If you're waiting on the audiobook, I promise I will announce it everywhere once it's live. If you pre-ordered it, just hold tight. I will send it to you when it's ready. If you have read Ruthless Ends, I would appreciate it so much if you would add your review to Amazon. You don't even have to write the review part if you don't want to. Just adding a star rating helps. Getting like a certain number of reviews helps in Amazon's algorithm and stuff. So if you just want to throw your star rating on there, I would appreciate it so much. For this book, for any of my books, it's super helpful. For any author that you read, they would appreciate it. Thank you so much for talking about the books and sharing about the books on your pages and stuff. I love when you tag me in your posts and I can see them. Thank you so much. Unless you're writing like a really negative review, go ahead, but just please don't tag me in those ones. That's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys are all doing well, and I'll just see you in the next one very, very soon. Bye. No.